to A Horrible Time with Anth.
That's me, and Pebble Dash.
That's me. Boo!
Hi.
Did you get a fright?
I did.
Good. No, because I shouted boo, just because you looked in the mirror.
That'll do it.
How you doing, Bab?
Oh, well, I can't contain my excitement for this episode.
Oh, I know.
So I am doing very well.
Let's just jump straight to it. What are we doing this episode?
We are diving into The Last of Us.
Oh, one of the best games ever.
Yeah.
My joint favourite with The Last of Us 2, which we will discuss in full at another point.
Yeah.
But yeah, Neil Druckmann done it again.
Oh, yes. So
good.
Yeah. Well, The Last of Us was released in 2013.
As if it was that long ago.
Developed by Naughty Dog, who have also done Jack's and Dexter and Uncharted.
Which we also love.
Yeah.
Nathan Drake is Daddy.
Oh, we love Nathan Drake.
Oh.
It's just, I totally agree. It's one of the best games I've ever played. And I've played a lot of games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So can you remember your first experience with The Last of Us?
Well, I remember the build-up to The Last of Us being released. And I was a bit like, oh, look, another zombie game. I wasn't that interested in it. Until maybe a couple of months before it was released, and they released a demo.
Yeah.
And I played the demo and was like, well, this is different. This isn't a zombie game. And the zombies almost don't matter to the game.
Yeah.
Because it's very much a story. And even just for the demo was just maybe the first hour.
Okay.
Or it was the first portion, the first part of the game. And I immediately was kind of hooked. And then the first time I played it, now I am really bad when I play games. If there's too many cutscenes, I skip them because I get bored very easily. I just want to play my damn game.
Yeah.
I want to be in control, as we know. So it's the first game in so long that I played where I didn't cut any cutscenes. I played it the entire way through.
Yeah. Can you remember how you felt after your first playthrough?
After my first playthrough, she wants to be learning English. After my first playthrough, I shocked. I felt shocked. I felt like I'd been through a really harrowing experience.
Yeah.
And had came out the other side with a positive ending, but just my emotions were all over. Like, I think I might have cried at the end of the game. I think I did the first time I played it. I cried at the end of the game because I was so relieved, but also the story was so beautiful.
Yeah.
What about you?
I remember the lead up to it as well, but I wasn't too fussed about it, to be honest. I thought it was just a Walking Dead thing, because Walking Dead was so big at the time. I think it was like its first or second season.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And then I always read like reviews and stuff like that. And it was like 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, masterpiece, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, I suppose I should give it a go. Put it in. First 10 minutes, I was like, what the fuck? I was literally crying because the first 10 minutes is so harrowing.
Yeah.
You play as Sarah very briefly. I'm getting emotional thinking about it now.
Don't cry.
And then
I'll judge you.
Sarah obviously gets killed. And I just remember being, what? A child has just died in the first 10 minutes of this game.
It's funny that you cried. I was raging.
Like, I was, like, in shock.
Yeah, I was really angry because I mean, we know why you done it.
Yeah.
It's so well done because I've kind of fell complete victim to Naughty Dog setup. I was playing as this young girl. I was like, well, this is exciting. Obviously, I know that the dad, at this point, we didn't know much about him, but I knew the dad was kind of the main person you were playing with. He was the main person that was showing adverts, etc. But playing as his daughter, and getting away, you get to safety,
Mm.
and then you die.
Yeah. It was literally like,
It was just such a shock
yeah.
and absolutely devastating. You just immediately felt connected to Joel because you experienced that loss with him.
Yeah, definitely. Then after my first playthrough, I was kind of the same as you, relieved, but I was also like, that's probably the best game I've ever played.
Yeah. And I would say literally about a quarter of a way in, I was like, oh, this is big.
Yeah.
This is different. This is a movie
Mm.
because I'm invested so emotionally in it.
Yeah.
And it's also a good game,
Mm.
but the story's so much bigger. It's a story about love. It's a love story.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind.
Blew mine as well. I was just overwhelmed.
And I would let Joel blow me anyway.
Oh, Daddy Joel. So the basic premise of the story is that a fungal infection has caused humans to turn into violent, feral, zombie-like creatures. And obviously right at the beginning you see it straight away with Sarah and Tommy and Joel.
Mm-hmm.
You see like the outbreak and how it's affecting, and then it jumps to 20 years later, and the world has changed.
Completely
changed.
All these people that had what at first appeared like a fungal disease that just made people manic and feral was actually mutating them, and they were becoming obviously different kinds. So they were becoming clickers and bloaters and the names that they have for them.
Yeah.
And it was mutating their bodies and kind of just taking over all breathable, livable space.
Yeah. So the world is very dystopian at this point, and you control Joel, who has aged
very gracefully.
very gracefully, but he's a very flawed man, very introverted in ways.
Mm-hmm.
How he doesn't speak about his emotions and things like that.
Yeah.
And from there, you are just introduced to this world, and it's bleak.
Yeah.
So, with the story, what did you think about it overall?
So, I mean, it was an amazing story. Obviously, you're introduced to some knowledge about the fireflies and the kind of powers that be that are still trying to take control over areas. And you meet Ellie, who is originally you're helping. What was her name again?
You are helping the leader of the Fireflies, Marlene. Yeah.
So we're helping Marlene with a package, and the package turns out to be Ellie.
Yeah.
And we need to get her to a hospital.
Yeah.
We don't know why at first. We don't find out why for a little while into the game.
Yeah.
And Ellie is a precocious 14-year-old girl at this point. She takes no prisoners. She's very like Joel in some ways.
Yeah.
So she takes no prisoners. She will kill, shoot, scavenge, do all the things that everybody else needs to do.
And she has a potty mouth.
Oh, she does, which I live for. And just following their travel across America and their relationship, because it's very much a father-daughter relationship without being a father-daughter relationship.
Yeah.
I think you're right in what you said. So Joel obviously is quite cold at first and doesn't really show emotion. And watching his narrative change as the story evolves, and him becoming more open to Ellie. And at first, he won't really talk about his daughter. Yeah. And by the end, they are talking about his daughter a little bit more. And you can just see they've really done a good job of building the connection between two characters over time. It was so perfectly paced with the game.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What did you think? How did you find the story?
God, the twists and turns in that story.
Oh, no.
Absolutely loved it. Just a perfect example of a father-daughter relationship, as you said, developing over time because they go through so much together. And it's just like right near the end when he calls her baby girl. Ugh. I don't think I actually had any complaints about the story. I didn't think a character did something that they wouldn't do or anything like that. We're like, oh, it's perfect, but it is.
Yeah, for me,
yeah,
absolutely, it is like the perfect example of a game.
Apart from Ellie and Joel, who are obviously the main characters, did you have any favourite characters?
So I liked Marlene because I understood what Marlene was doing.
Yeah.
Marlene represented the bigger picture.
Yeah.
She was fighting for the rest of humanity. And that was her goal, and having Ellie studied and ripped open and taken apart to try and save the rest of the world. So I understood where Marlene was coming from, and I think you could see that there was pain in Marlene with what she was having to do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because she was kind of giving care of Ellie from Ellie's mum, who you don't meet, but she was called Anna.
Yeah.
And it really pains her to do it, but she knows she has to do it.
Yeah, because obviously we find out during the game that Ellie's immune to the bites of these people and the clickers and such. And so I really liked Marlene, and I really liked Tommy.
Tommy, yeah.
Because he was the antithesis of Joel.
Yeah.
They were so different in their approach into what they wanted and what they wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
So I really liked him.
Because Joel becomes a drifter, kind of like in the 20 years, he becomes a drifter, and Tommy joins the Fireflies.
Yeah.
So it's a totally different value set between them. I really enjoyed Bill, who you meet in that town.
Oh, yeah. The gay dude.
The gay dude, yeah. Very well done. It's not like explicitly stated or anything.
Yeah.
He's a great side character. I love how he set all the traps around the town. I love that he's obviously pretty mental.
Yeah, there's stuff going on there.
Yeah. Just kind of backtracking a bit, like no characters are not fleshed out. That's what I really love about it.
Yeah, because the way they fleshed it out was really clever. So it wasn't necessarily your interactions with the characters, but obviously a big part of the game is finding notes and things like that. And those notes really fleshed out, because even Bill's quote-unquote partner, even though he was dead, you knew exactly how he felt and you understood his reasoning for things.
Yeah. So it's fleshed out in like notes and documents that you can pick up as well.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I think the whole kind of gameplay of it. So I'm just thinking, because you said about Bill's traps, because it was really fun that he'd done it, but God, it was infuriating when you were playing it, because there's traps everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think as well, it's one of the kind of memorable, because I may be wrong, but it's the first point I remember being overwhelmed by the amount of attacks that were happening when you are out the back of the bar and there's the cars and they start running at you over the cars and stuff. That was the first time I remember being overwhelmed. I know I died at that part a couple of times.
Shit.
Yeah. And I think that was the great thing about the whole game, is that there was these moments of poignancy and then there was these feral attacks.
Yeah.
That you just had to deal with.
Like snuck up on you, didn't it?
Yeah, because it's the same. The part where you come across the little town and you have to work your way down for the back of the town, and there's a sniper in the window. Oh, yes. And you have to go in between the houses to try and escape, because there's also people running at you.
And you have to push that car.
Yes.
Yeah.
The bit where you push the car as well. Yeah, like all of the bits, because it was frustrating and the story was still happening, so you're paying attention to the story. It was really well done.
At that point in the story as well, you're accompanied by two other survivors called Sam and Henry, and their story breaks my heart. It's
just so sad.
Yeah.
The toy robot.
Because they're literally a parallel between Joel and Ellie.
Yeah.
It's I think the brothers, aren't they?
Yes, they're brothers.
Yeah.
And he's looking after the young kid.
He's looking after the young kid, and they meet up with Joel and Ellie. And you see Ellie be a child for a bit.
Yeah, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, because obviously she's thrust into this violent world, but you get to see her be a child when they're in this toy store and they're playing with darts and things like that.
Yeah.
And then hits you in the fields with what happens to them too as well.
I know, because there's obviously a bit where you start to dislike the older brother when they climb up onto the van and the ladder falls off the side of the van and they run away.
Mm.
And then you end up meeting up again with them later on the beach.
Yeah.
When you're exploring, you go down into the sewer. Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, obviously the brother gets bitten.
Yeah.
And turns. And that's what I think Naughty Dog in general know how to tell a story.
Yeah.
We've seen it with Uncharted, even though they did bring a brother back who never existed for the fourth one. But his character was good. But they know how to tell a story. They know how to hook you in and get you invested in what's happening.
They definitely do. And the actors, oh my God.
So good. Mm. Who played Joel?
Troy Baker.
Troy Baker.
Yeah. And then Ashley Johnson played Ellie.
Yeah. But obviously Ellie's look. I mean, it was obviously moulded on Elliot Page.
Yeah.
And you can see it. And didn't Elliot Page sue or try to sue at one point?
He didn't sue. He was just kind of upset that another game had took his likeness.
Yeah. We're just going to shut the door because the cats have just broke in. Little buggers. You want to be part of the podcast? Elliot had obviously done Beyond Two Souls. And you can see the similarity in the two characters.
You can, yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, so I really like that arc with them. What bits of the game stick in your mind? So what kind of scenes?
Oh. Well, obviously, I already mentioned the opening sequence. Mm-hmm. But the bit that sticks in my mind the most is the start of the winter segment. Joel's been really injured. Mm-hmm. And Naughty Dog had been naughty and said that you would never play as Ellie.
Yeah.
In the lead up to the game releasing. And you play as Ellie in the winter segment. And that whole segment is just so good because you get to hunt with Ellie. So it's all nice and fun at first. You hunt a deer and then you meet a guy called David. And he...
You knew not to trust him.
You knew not. He was too nice.
Yeah. It was very odd.
Yeah. And then it turns out that he is actually the leader of a cannibal group of people. Mm-hmm. And he tries to recruit Ellie at first. And then he locks her in a cage in his town.
Yep. And then she escapes. And it's another one of the parts. So I'm very much the same. That's one of my favourite bits of the game. When you're in the kind of town and you're having to jump through shop windows and kind of kill the people that are coming to search for her.
It's actually one of the most horror bits, I would say. Yeah. Because when you escape as Ellie, you see all the dead bodies piled up and stuff like that. And you know that they're eating them. And I mean,
sometimes people get peckish,
in an apocalypse.
Exactly.
But then it switches back to Joel, who realizes that Ellie isn't there. Mm-hmm. So he goes in search of her, and then in the snow-covered town, the snow is literally covering your vision, and you're like, "Oh my God!" It's one of the most tense moments of the games.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. I think as well, the other bit to me that jumps out for the tension is the school.
Oh.
The first time you see that bloater. But even the run-up to that was quite tense.
Yeah.
But the bloater, because he's obviously one of the harder kills. He's like a boss level, if you will.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one. And the hotel. When you're having to again go through. It's anywhere where you have to be stealthy is always going to evoke that. But generally you have to be stealthy with humans.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Yeah, I definitely agree that the winter part, and then when she's in the restaurant,
Or when you have to sneak.
yeah, and he jumps on her, and it alludes that he was going to force himself on her, and she obviously. It's almost like it's the first time Ellie's really seen how bad people can be.
She has a breakdown.
Yeah, it was human.
Yeah.
It was a really human moment. And I think it was dealt with really well.
And Joel's just like, it's okay. And you're just like, oh.
So good. And then I think we'd be remiss to say the hospital.
Oh, yes.
Just the whole...
The penultimate scene.
Yeah, the whole part in the hospital, because you don't know what's going to happen when. So that whole part in the hospital is really good. And then, yeah, when he finally gets to her and saves her.
Mm-hmm. And you're like torn because he takes her off the operating table, goes to the car park, and Marlene's there. Mm-hmm. And she's just like, you don't know what you're doing. And he's like, I do know what I'm doing.
And she poses the question of kind of what would Ellie want? Yeah.
Because she tries to kind of convince him to give back Ellie by saying she's not going to survive long. She's going to be killed. She's going to be raped. Everything like that. And he just shoots her in the gut.
Iconic.
And I was just like, oh. And then she begs him not to kill her. And he does anyway.
Yeah. And that's the thing with Joel, we said at the start. Joel's flawed. He's not a perfect stand-up guy. He kills people and he retaliates and he makes some choices that maybe we wouldn't understand. But it's because he loves Ellie. I think what I love about the game, and I love the way that they've set it up, that it's like a father-daughter type of love and not a romantic love. If this had been an adult woman, I wouldn't have cared as much.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have been invested. But they used a child and just set it up so well.
Yeah, because obviously he's lost one daughter, he doesn't want to lose another.
Yeah,
so you can understand his reasonings.
100%.
Yeah. So gameplay-wise, what did you think, gameplay? Obviously it's played third person, so you see a character.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved the gameplay. I loved that you had to stop and you were kind of still live while you were making your bandages and wrapping yourself up and all those kind of things. Like, I loved that it never really stopped. The gameplay was continuous.
Yeah.
So I love that about it. I think that the way that you manage your backpack, the way that you manage your loads, your loadout, so your guns and things like that. Yeah. Again, because it kind of added to the tension of you ran out of bullet and you had to try and scroll along to the next one. Do you know what I mean? It built up the tension really well. I think that the gameplay, the way that it was filmed was great. I never felt like there was a camera pan that pulled you out the game or anything like that. It really focused on the right parts of the game. You can tell that they put a lot into it. You can see how much they put into it. Even we were talking about Joel. So if you look at that winter scene, you play as two characters in the same place, but have a completely different experience. Yeah. Because it could have been lazy. He could have just followed her tracks and went the exact same way. But they don't do that. Yeah. And I think it shows how much effort they put into the game.
Yeah, they do feel very different when you control them. Because obviously, at first, Ellie only has the bow. And obviously Joel has not had a bow, so it's a very different feeling. I really enjoyed the gameplay as well. It adds to the tension when you have to stop and make your pack and you're like, oh my god, there's a click around the corner.
I know.
The listen mode as well, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Because it helped, but only to a point. I never felt like it made it easy.
Yeah. I'm really shit at stealth. So
see, I love stealth.
I love stealth, but I'm pretty shit at it. So you know that bit quite early on in the game where they're underground in a train station, and it's like a square. Yes. And there's clickers on every single side.
And there's like a newsagent's bit
yeah.
inside where you can go and hit. Yeah.
And the idea is that you have to like shave the clickers first and then get to the other side. Well, first time I literally just ran in with my shotgun.
Oh God. Don't do that.
But I didn't realise at first.
Oh, see, I got stealth from it straight away.
I was like,
because obviously the first time you ever see any of the clickers or that is in your tutorial for the kind of stealth play. Yeah. So I always went stealth. Even when I didn't have to, I would still go stealthily.
I kind of do that now in stealth games. I just go into stealth.
Yeah, because it's just easier. Because I love a stealth game. You know, I love games like Thief and Uncharted and Metro, etc., where there's loads of stealth within it. So, yeah, the stealth in this is really good, and it was palpable when you were in stealth mode.
Yeah, I was sweating.
Oh, it was rough.
Yeah.
I tell you what other bit as well. Oh, I can't remember where you are, and there's clickers everywhere, and it's where all the kids were, and they had their own like water kind of thing made up. I can't remember what part of the game it is, but you remember.
Yeah, I think you're with Sam and Henry at that point as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
because you get split up, so you end up with Joel and Sam. No. Do you end up with Joel and Sam? You end up split up, and they're split up in a different pairing.
Yeah.
So you end up, I can't remember who you play with at that point, but that whole part, because they were just everywhere, and they were coming in and out of view, and again, it was just another point of excellence gameplay, but I think the camera work on it was amazing.
Yeah.
There's so many games that you play where the camera pan pulls you out.
Yeah.
Because it gives you awkward view and awkward vision, whereas that never, for me anyway, never happened in this game.
Yeah, I really enjoyed like little titchy bits as well of gameplay. If you're in a dark area and you've got your flashlight on, it'll go off.
Yes,
and you have to shake the pad to make it go back on. That's pretty cool. And the AI of the enemies is fantastic. Yeah, like if you step one bit out of line, you're done for.
You're done. You're dead. Yeah, absolutely. I think it was just, honestly, it was just an amazing overall game. We obviously love it, and the world loved it. I think we said as well, when we're going to talk about this game, we have to talk about the kind of mini prequel game that they released as well.
Oh, yes. So they released some DLC called Left Behind, which fills in Ellie's backstory a wee bit. And you obviously play as Ellie. It's a flashback during the winter segment of the main game, when Ellie is searching for supplies for Joel. She flashes back to her friend Riley, and they go to an abandoned mall.
Oh, Riley.
Yeah. Who she like alluded to in the main game a bit.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure like Joel asked her something like, do you not hang out with kids your own age or something like that?
Yeah, it was something along those lines.
And she's like, well, I did have a friend. And you're like, ooh. And Riley's very kind of like the opposite of Ellie. She's very outgoing. At this point anyway, because Ellie's a bit more shy and reserved. But Riley's like outgoing, like, let's go to this mall. It's abandoned. Let's have some fun. And it is a really fun kind of break from the violence of the main game.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And obviously, even within Left Behind, it is very much story-driven with Riley, and then you come back to where she is now, well, at that point, during the winter, trying to fend off and find things within there to help Joel, like the bit she goes up into the aircraft that had crashed and stuff. I thought the story between her and Riley was beautiful. It was such a good representation, because obviously it's alluded, there's a level of queerness alluded to in Ellie in the main game, but never really.
She's like tomboyish.
Yeah, she's 14, she's tomboyish, yeah. In this game, obviously, she has a more overtly queer storyline.
She does, yes.
And it's her little kind of budding romantic feelings towards Riley, and they do share a kiss, which doesn't confirm anything, but it just kind of was like, it was nice to see they didn't shy away from some of the narrative that fans had already kind of pushed with Ellie.
Yeah.
It was nice to see that Naughty Dog stepped into that and dealt with it really well.
It was just an innocent kiss. It was so cute. And she says, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that." And Riley's like, "Well, I didn't mind." Yeah. And then they kind of just leave it.
It's just really a really sweet, innocent, first queer awakening kind of storyline that they pushed. Well, they never pushed it, but storyline that they presented. And it was, I honestly think it was handled really well, because it could have been sensationalised a bit. We know what things are like and we know what people are like. But I think they handled that really well.
Yeah.
And obviously it sets up her storyline for when we come back in The Last of Us 2. But Left Behind, I thought, was a really good DLC.
I really enjoyed it. It wasn't too long and it wasn't too short either.
Yep.
And I just enjoyed them acting like kids.
Yeah, like when they're in the Halloween store.
That's so funny.
And Ellie's having none of it at first.
And then there's a really cute bit, actually, where Ellie finds like a game machine, an arcade machine.
Yeah.
And it's not working. And Riley's like, "Just imagine."
And she speaks her through the story.
And then on your screen you see like the life bars, if it's like a fighting game thing, and Ellie's got her eyes closed, and it's just really nice, really cute.
Yeah. And really human.
And
it really humanises Ellie so much. And she was already a very humanised character, but it gives you, I suppose, that little bitty backstory of Ellie that we already had with Joel. We can see Joel was obviously a single parent, and had his daughter, and his daughter passed, so we knew what happened before, but we only knew bits that Ellie had told us had happened. And she was a little bit cagey. She's very similar to Joel.
Yeah,
she's not as forthright and open with things. And I think that's why just both games and all of the story together is so lush, because at the end there's these two people who trust and love each other and are happy to be so open with each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just honestly really well handled by Naughty Dog, and Neil Druckmann is a hero.
He is.
Would you have died or would you have survived?
Oh, I would have died 100%.
How would you have died?
I would have probably just been one of the infected. Straight away. Because I actually, maybe not, because I hate mushrooms, so I probably just ran away.
True.
If a killer mushroom's coming at me, I am going.
I think I would have also died.
It's a very hard world to live in.
Yeah, I think I would have gave up and probably killed myself. Because I can't be dealing with no post-apocalyptic nonsense.
Well, that's touched upon as well. Because Bill's partner kills himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's encompassing loads of different experiences.
Bill's partner was so vile in those notes that he wrote to Bill.
I know, he's like, "I hate you, you're a fucking dick."
I know, he's so mean.
And Bill's like, "Ugh."
And Bill's just like a curmudgeon-y, weird, such a good character. I have the one bit that I forgot, the bit where you're with
Tess.
Bill, I think when you're with Bill and you're going through the houses, and you have to get into, there's like some houses you can go in, some that you can't, and you have to go through a house, and there's like a pool and stuff, and you can go in either by climbing over the top of a wall or going through the garage door. And then it's when you get the car.
Yes.
It's when you go into the garage and get the car.
Yeah.
That whole bit, because obviously you don't realise it as you're walking up the white fence, there's loads of them around you.
Ooh.
So that's another really good bit of the game.
What about like little titchy pieces of the game that you liked? I'll start. So I really enjoy the bit where you get to the university and you're on that balcony and you just walk forward and all of a sudden 2 giraffes appear.
Oh, yeah.
It was like a reprieve from the really heavy action. And it's just a really beautiful moment that Ellie and Joel share, which kind of cements their relationship at that point, I think.
Yeah.
Because I was reading some trivia, and giraffes are quite present throughout the game. They were on like cards and things like that, and they represent innocence.
That makes sense.
Mm.
Yeah, that was a gorgeous bit of the game. See, for me, when she can't get in the water, so I liked every bit where Joel goes and gets a crate to help her across water.
Pulls her across the water, yeah.
And just, it's a really fatherly thing to do, teaching your kid to swim and things like that. It's just a really fatherly situation.
Yeah.
So I really like that part. And I love when they're underground and there's loads of bloaters. And you have to walk through all the sewers and everything. I love that part.
Yeah.
But I really also liked just the part where Tommy tries to give Joel the picture, his daughter.
Oh,
There's little things that happen throughout the game like that show you where Joel is.
Yeah.
And at that point, he's not ready.
He's not ready yet, yeah. Is that the bit where either just before or after Ellie's ran away?
Yes.
And she goes to that house, and then Joel's like, I have to go and find her.
Yeah, I think it's maybe just before.
Yeah, I remember that. And also the fact that Joel carries that watch, has that watch on still, that Sarah gave him in the beginning of the game, and it's broken. And that plays a really big part in the sequel as well, the watch.
Yeah. But the sequel will be another episode.
Yes.
So, I think it's pretty clear that we both absolutely rate this game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a game that anyone can play.
I do as well. Like, it's got everything in there that you want. Mm-hmm. It's survival horror, probably is one of the best, if not the best survival horror game. Like for the gameplay buffs, it's got like really cool like mechanics, like crafting system and things like that. And then just a Hollywood story.
Yeah.
Like, it's just amazing.
It's a really human story.
Very human. I just have to very briefly speak about one part that I haven't. The bit where they get into that car and they're driving and Ellie finds the porn mags. So funny.
It is funny. And it's also, again, the way that she handles it.
Yeah, she's like, what'd you do with that? And Joel's like, literally like, and she just chucks it out the window. It's so funny.
Yeah, that is a really funny bit of the game. And there is loads of little bits of humour sprinkled throughout the game. It's got everything. It's got every emotion you can imagine. Yeah. It's got in there. And I think it's amazing to experience in the same game at the same time the bitterness of Joel against the world and the wonder of Ellie.
Yeah.
Because there's so much Ellie's not experienced.
Yeah.
So her wonder mixed with his kind of bitterness against the situation in the world at the time is just beautifully done.
Yeah.
So I would highly recommend everybody goes and plays it.
Yeah. If you haven't played it, you need to. It is fab.
And you need to play it before we talk about The Last of Us 2. So I might have to go and play The Last of Us immediately after talking about it. Honestly, such a good game. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you.
Hope you've had, as always, a horrible time. Bye.
Bye.
You can follow the podcast at A Horrible Time Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow your host Anthony at
Anthony Detro on Twitter and at Diamond Hardskin on Instagram. You can follow Pebble at
It's Pebble Dash on Instagram and Famous Cunt on Twitter. Recording by Pebble and Anth, mix and mastered by Pebble Dash. Artwork by Graphic Design.